Alright, what's going on, guys? So today we're hopping back into Elden Ring. Over the past 2 weeks, we've just gotten so much information that it's a little hard to keep up with, but I'm trying my best for you guys. So today we're going to be breaking down the stuff that we didn't cover in the last video about Elden Ring, with Miyazaki's interviews and all the things he said about the story of the game. We're also going to be addressing a point that's been floating around a lot that I think is kind of garnering too much attention, and that is Miyazaki saying the game is going to be easier. I think that's being taken vastly out of context, so we're going to address that. But as always, guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already to stay up to date with all the latest Elden Ring information. I know like 95% of you guys that watch my videos are not subscribed, so do me a favor and do that. I promise I'll try to make it worth it for you. But let's get into the information. So I'm sure all of you by now have seen the Miyazaki interviews, but there's a lot of people going out there and saying stuff that I don't think is wholly true, so we're going to break it down point by point and look at exactly what he said and in context. And again, this is going to be focusing on the story rather than the gameplay aspects. If you want to see the gameplay aspects, we already did a video on that, but no more stalling. Alright, so for the first point about Elden Ring's story, Miyazaki said that George R.R. Martin wrote the base for the story rather than the narrative. So George R.R. Martin's direct involvement came in the mythos and the background of the world. Because Miyazaki didn't want to change anything he wrote, he wanted to be able to craft the narrative and direct story that we'll be playing without encroaching on any of Martin's creativity. So when we're playing through the game, our objective and the things that directly influence that are most likely the product of Miyazaki, while the things that we learn about in the lore tabs about the overall world as a whole are probably the product of Martin. So it's not like they got together and worked on this simultaneously, but rather Martin wrote his part first, and then Miyazaki and Fromsoftware took that and expanded upon it to create the whole of the game. Alright, the next point is that we're going to be going back to the Dark Souls style of silent protagonists with our standard character customization and leveling system with the same stats that we've seen before. Next, the lands between are ruled by the demigods, heroes who have received the blood of the god queen Marika, or Marika, I'm not sure how to say that one, and are thus blessed strongly. However, from a certain point in time, people who were not blessed started to appear in this land. The blessed have golden lights in their eyes, and those who are unblessed do not, and are called the tarnished, and are exiled. So there's some interesting wording there that I want to look into. It said those who receive the blood, yet on Bandai's website it said the demigods were the offspring of Queen Marika. So does this mean that there's also demigods who are not the offspring but receive the blood? I'm not sure how to take that, but we'll dive into that another time. Next, the player character is brought to the lands between by a clear blessed guidance, which in the world setting is something close to a message from the gods, but it's not absolute. Miyazaki says that it's up to the player whether to follow or doubt the message. The interviewer asked if Miyazaki saying that the player does not need to follow the guidance means that the game is going to have multiple endings, and he acknowledges this, saying that not only are there multiple endings, but that the paths leading to them are very free as well. So it sounds like we're going to have the power to influence the story in many different ways. We're going to have to be conscious about all the decisions we make throughout the game, and I'm excited about that. That's going to add a lot of replay value. Story progression is particularly free when compared to the Dark Souls series, and Miyazaki then brings up boss battles, saying that there are very few bosses that absolutely must be defeated in Elden Ring, and the order and timing they are tackled is left up to the player as well. I'm not too sure how I feel about this, but I guess it makes sense in an open world game. In the trailer, we definitely saw many of the bosses that take place beneath the tree in the open field that are going to be kind of open world events, so it definitely seems like the majority are going to be optional bosses. He did stress that the sneak is going to be a useful tool in skipping several of the bosses in the game if you want to progress the story but you're not good enough to actually beat them. I know there were some people that like that feature, but personally I'm going to kill every boss. That's the way I do it. So if you only care about actually beating the game in the story sense, then good on you. The storytelling methods remain unchanged, with the player picking up bits and pieces and putting it together as they progress, but Miyazaki says that the core parts are now easier to understand and the story pieced together is also bigger and deeper than before. So I imagine the narrative of this game is going to be a lot like Sekiro, where we clearly understand our objective that we're pursuing, but there's also so much other stuff in the world for us to dive into if we want to. And the final point about the story is Elden Ring's primary goal is to allow them to freely make a new dark fantasy that utilizes their know-how that does not stick to what was established in Dark Souls, but at the same time is not afraid to be similar to Dark Souls, a different approach from Sekiro. So what that's saying essentially is it's referring to Fromsoftware in the development, and unlike Sekiro where they were kind of going into uncharted waters with the development of that and trying something completely new, with Elden Ring they're staying in their comfort zone of the Souls-likes, where they can really utilize their experience and figure out what worked and what didn't work and make a good game based off that they know the fans of the Dark Souls game games will absolutely love. And I really like this approach that they're taking. To me, the story of Sekiro was a perfect mix of open-ended story and direct narrative. But I kind of felt like there was a lack of side quests to go on that didn't directly affect the narrative. So if they can combine the good aspects of Sekiro's narrative and the mystique freedom of Dark Souls, I think this game is going to check everybody's boxes and there's going to be something for every player to love. And that has me really hyped. So now let's get into the juicy bit of, is Elden Ring going to be too easy? You might have heard a lot of other people saying stuff like, Miyazaki said Elden Ring's going to be easy to be more accessible. And stuff like, oh, they're bending the knee to the game journalists. They're making it easy because everybody's crying for an easy mode. I've seen a lot of bait like that, but it is not the case. So let's find the direct quote from Miyazaki and see exactly what he said about it in context. The interview reads, quote, "Next, Miyazaki is asked how difficult the game is compared to Bloodborne and Sekiro. Miyazaki says this is hard to answer purely as an action game. He thinks that Elden Ring is not as difficult. When comparing it to Sekiro, the player being able to level up or use multiplayer makes the game easier, with the difficulty closer to Dark Souls 3. And even when compared to Dark Souls 3, the addition of player choices, spirit summoning, stealth, new tactics, and easier ways to engage in multiplayer, he thinks that the difficulty is best described as very difficult, but it can be handled." End quote. So that is by no means saying that they're making this game easier at all. It's more saying that the difficulty is going to remain the same, but we have more tools in our arsenal now and more ways to approach combat, such as sneaking around a boss and saving it for later when we're more powerful, and the spirit summoning. And he describes spirit summoning in boss battles such as using a heavy spirit like a tank to guard you while you cast magic from behind, or summoning archer spirits to shoot arrows from behind you while you take the front line. There's also no penalty to summoning now, so a lot more people are going to be summoning for bosses. So while the difficulty of the game is going to remain the same, there are more tools in our arsenal. Fromsoftware isn't the kind of studio to abandon the ways they've always done it and what makes their game special. They know how to craft a game that we're going to love, but is also going to appeal to a wider audience this time. So this is in no way just making the game easier to appease the people that have been whining and complaining for an easy mode every time a new Souls game comes out. I think if anything, this is just going to make the game more fun and less likely to make you rage quit and drop the game forever. So coming from somebody who does not summon in Souls games, I play everything solo the way it's intended to be played. I welcome these changes. I think it's still going to be the same gritty, tough experience we've always had with a huge payoff in the end. So don't get baited by all the easy mode stuff. But anyways guys, that's going to pretty much do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like on it and let me know what you're most excited about for Elden Ring. For me, I can't wait to get back into PvP. All these new changes sounds like PvP is going to be an absolute blast. But as always, be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you in the next one.